Welcome to the regular meeting of the Arbor Historic District Commission. I'd like to take a moment to explain the order of the meeting, specifically as it relates to the hearing of the applications on tonight's agenda. Each case will be called and we'll first hear the staff presentation and recommendations. Following this, the commissioners who serve on the review committee will present their observations and recommendations. At this point, the applicant will have an opportunity to step forward and provide any comments or additional information about the application. Once the applicant has finished, members of the public who wish to provide comments on the current case may do so, while please noting the time limit of 3 minutes per person. Everyone who steps forward will need to state their name aloud for the record and sign in at the sheet located at the podium and limit their comments to the application at hand. Do we have a pen up there? We have a pen. We have a pen up there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Following any public comment, the applicant may be called back to the podium to rebut any public comments and answer questions that the commission may have. Once all questions have been answered, the hearing will be closed and the commission will deliberate the application, make a motion, have a discussion, and then vote. If any members of the public would like to speak to the general preservation topics and not to any specific application, opportunity is provided during the public commentary following the approval of the agenda. Everyone who would like to address the commission may do so and will be asked to state their name loud for the record and sign in at the front podium. Thank you so much for coming this evening. Your comments are valuable to the commission. I would now like to introduce the commissioners. We have, to my left, Max Cope. We have Evan Hall further down. We have Anna Epperson. Did I say it right?
Yes.
Good. Staff, Jill Thatcher. I'm supposed to do commissioners on that. Okay. Doesn't matter. Over here we have Robert White and David Rockland. Hi. All right, I now call the October 12th, 2017 regular meeting of the Ann Arbor Historic District Commission to order. Ms. Thatcher, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Beeson.
Here.
Commissioner Cope.
Here.
Commissioner Epperson. Here. Commissioner Hall.
Here.
Commissioner Rockland.
Here.
Commissioner White.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
If you would please look at your blue agenda, there's only one small addition. If you're looking at the pink agenda, you'll be fine. There's just a nominating committee that was added to the blue one. But we're talking about the blue one right now.
Talking about the blue one. Look at the blue one. Any additions or deletions?
Yeah, the addition on that was the nominating committee.
Yeah.
On the blue.
All right, without objection, the agenda will be approved as presented. All right. What's next here? We'll now move on to items. Do the roll call to the agenda. Audience participation, that we do that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are there any members of the audience that would like to speak on general historic preservation topics? I don't see any. All right, next one. Where's this? I don't see this in here. I'll just do that. All right, then we're on to E, unfinished business. We have no unfinished business, so now we're on to F for hearings. Hearing F1, 312 South State Street. Ms. Thatcher.
This storefront was pretty recently in front of you guys, most of you. In February of 2016, the HDC approved an application to replace the storefront display windows and install a new business sign, 2 canopies, and mechanical equipment. Some of that's been done, some of it has not. You can see from the photo here, that's not the permanent sign, that's a temporary sign that's up there. Well, the permanent one gets fabricated. These storefronts were built in 1886, but in 1931, they were remodeled to this Art Deco facade, and everything on the first floor is non-original. The application is to approve a double-sided 30-inch by 20-inch projecting sign and spotlighting at the top of the wooden sign band that you see here. So here's what the application looks like. This is the little sign right here. These 2 awnings and this larger roasting plant coffee sign were previously approved. Changes to the windows that you can actually see in this photo. You can see the bifold windows that stack inside. That work has already been done. And now they're requesting a small pedestrian-scaled blade sign with 2 spotlights, one on either side, that are mounted up to the building. They're not on arms sticking out, and they're where those 2 red dots are. The sign is pretty straightforward. It's fabricated from steel and aluminum. It's 30 inches deep, 20 inches tall. There's 3 inches between the building and the sign itself on a single arm. It'll be mounted into that wood sign band, which is an appropriate place to put it. The whole thing's about 5 inches thick. The photo on the bottom is a representative superimposition of what it might look like, not on this building, but on a different building. That's what one of the spotlights would look like. There is information in the packet on the spotlight. I didn't get into it with the slideshow here, but you can see some of the details there. The sign is mounted at a similar height to other signs as you go to the north on State Street, on the same side of the street. There are a couple other small projecting signs, one for C that's 2 doors down, one for Dascola Barbers that's next to that. And it is very compatible with those. So I think it's appropriately mounted. It's close to the roasting plant door, and you ought to be able to see it around this canopy next door, which gets pretty shallow up here near the top. So let me go through the Secretary of Interior standards. Standard 1 says that a property will be used as it was historically or be given a new use that requires minimal change to its distinctive materials, features, spaces, and spatial relationships. Number 2 says that the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. Number 9 says new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. New work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with the massing size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. Finally, number 10 says new additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property will be unimpaired. From the Ann Arbor Historic District's design guidelines for signs, it is appropriate to install signage in the sign band area, typically the area above the transoms or just above the storefront. It's also appropriate to install signage that is lit from external light fixtures above or below the sign, and to place signs to align with others along the commercial block face. And also to install signage that's compatible in size, style, materials, and appearance to the historic resource and district. Staff believes the sign is appropriate and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines, Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, and the Secretary of the Interior's Guidelines for Rehabilitating Historic Buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thatcher. Who were on the review committee, commissioners?
Excellent.
Cope and Epperson. All right, Commissioners Epperson and Cope, would you please give the review committee report and recommendations?
I'll go first.
Sure. I agree with staff findings that the sign is appropriately sized for pedestrian scale, that it is, in fact, as she stated, located within the appropriate signage banding. We had a couple of questions about the lights when we were looking at the signage on site. But as you can see, it's mounted closer to the building. It's not on arm's length. There are quite a few lights on other buildings that are gooseneck features, or even some across the street that are externally lit on top of the sign. I don't think they'll interfere with the, mostly the lights are not noticeable, I think, and they blend in and they'll light the sign nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also agree with staff findings. There wasn't anything out of the ordinary in comparisons to the other signs on State Street. I approve this. I would approve this proposal.
All right, thanks. It appears that the gooseneck lights are already down. You guys can confirm that from the photos.
Mm-hmm.
All right, would the applicant please come forward, give your name for the record, and please sign in? Do you have anything to add to the staff or review committee reports?
My name is Scott Robach with Nora Architects and Engineers, address 150 West Jefferson, Suite 1300 in Detroit, Michigan. I have nothing to add except thanking Jill, Anna, and Max for their diligent work, and I'm just here to answer any additional questions if there are any.
All right. Well, sometimes we ask the public at this point if they have questions. I think that was the change that we made. Okay.
Public first. And
Yeah. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak about the project? Seeing none. All right, commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant? No dying questions.
No questions.
No dying questions. All right. I'd like to close the public hearing portion of the application. The applicant may please be seated. Good job. Would any commissioner like to make a motion regarding this application?
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Coe.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 312 South State Street, a contributing property in the State Street Historic District, to install a new 30 by 20 business sign as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for storefronts and signs, and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 1, 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for storefronts.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Is there any discussion on the motion or the application? No discussion on the motion. All right. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All those opposed to the motion, please say no. All right, the motion carries. Your application has been approved, and you will receive written notification from staff. Please remember to pull any necessary building permits. And thank you. Okay. And our next item on the agenda is F2, 511 Elizabeth Street. Go ahead, Ms. Thatcher.
Commissioners, there's a small addition to your packet. These were some late additions that didn't make it into the original copy, but they are now posted online, and they're in front of you. It starts with a letter. It's a couple of pages of clarifying information.
I did.
This 1 3/4 story gable fronter appears on an 1869 map and the 1872 Cole and Keating City Directory as the home of C.O. Willis, a carpenter, and boarders J.B. and J.W. Willis, also carpenters. House features wide board trim beneath the eaves, a full-width masonry front porch, and tapered square columns with 6/1 windows. Site's located on the west side of Elizabeth Street, north of East Kingsley, and south of High Street. And the applicant is seeking HGC approval to enlarge a basement window and install a wider and taller egress window. This is a lovely house. There are relatively few alterations that have been made to it over the years. The application, there are a lot more photos in your packet that you may want to reference when you're looking at these if you get lost. But the window is on, when you're facing the house, it's on the right side, on the north side, and it's just around the corner behind the big tree here that you see in the front. This is the window in question. It would go from 31 inches wide to 36 inches wide, and from a 21-inch tall opening to a 55-inch tall opening. As you can see, most of that would be below grade, the height. The window well would be made of 6 by 8 inch landscape timbers, and there's a photo of a representative timber well in those additional photos that I just gave you. So this window is farther forward on the house than I would advise someone coming to the HDC to request. The front porch is just in front of the meter that you see here on the left. There are 2 basement windows on either side before you get to an addition. And let me see if I copied the floor plan into here. You can see that there are a couple of small additions here on the back. This one looks like it might be older than the way back there. Normally, I would advise people to put a well this close to the front of the house, mostly because it makes it much more visible. I'm less concerned about losing a sort of standard wood basement window than I am about altering the opening and making it a lot bigger. The other candidate for this window would be a little bit farther back, but the way that the basement has previously been finished, I guess it's been this way for many years, the room in the front is the one that's more suitable for a bedroom. That's neither here nor there, really. It's really not something that you need to worry about taking into consideration. It's just not how I would have advised somebody to do it in the first place. But they're dealing with a basement that's already been finished, so they're asking for the most logical window to go with what they've got. This is a single-family rental. I believe that they're already rated for 6 occupants in 5 bedrooms, so adding this bedroom would just put 6 occupants in 6 bedrooms. It's not going to add any more people to the structure, per se. Here's the floor plan. So here's the proposed egress window up here with a 3-foot by 3-foot well. I think the work itself is appropriate. The only question is the location. Here's the existing finished room. The stairs are way in the back here. You would come down, go through this other existing finished room that's sort of a family room, I'm supposing, and into the room that could be a bedroom. There are some details provided on the window. These are the dimensions of the existing window, and the proposed new one is an Anderson casement, 3 feet by 54 inches. And there's the representative window well. Staff thinks that those materials are just fine. From the Secretary of Interior Standards, number 2 says that the historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. I've already read numbers 9 and 10 to you. From the guidelines for windows, recommended is designing and installing additional windows on rear or other non-character defining elevations if required by new use. Not recommended is introducing a new design that's incompatible with the historic character of the building. Health and safety design guidelines recommend identifying the historic building's character defining spaces, features, and finishes that code-required work will not result in their damage or loss. Also undertaking code-required alterations to a building or site before identifying those spaces, features, or finishes which are character-defining and must therefore be preserved. That's not recommended. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for windows, it's not appropriate to change the number, location, and size or glazing pattern of windows by cutting new openings, blocking in, or installing replacement sash which does not fit the historic opening. Also not appropriate is removing or radically changing a window that is important in defining the overall historic character of the property. I think that's a good one to think about a little more closely. Would replacing this basement window with an egress window that's pretty close to the front of the house, pretty visible, is that area of the house important in defining the overall historic character of the property? So staff is marginally in support of the application. I do think that there's, think that, you know, an argument can be made for it being an appropriate use. I think that you could probably make another argument pretty easily, but it's also, if you look at the photos, the other side of the building, if I can get it here, I don't think I have a good photo, has a driveway going down it, I believe. And then with the additions on the back, I do think that this side of the house is the most appropriate. But the other thing that I meant to point out that I didn't is right next door up here, you can see a little bit of the parish house, or whatever they call it for St. Thomas across the street. It's a big 3-story brick. It's quite close to this one. And also, Elizabeth Street, if you're in a car, is one way going north. So you would rarely ever see the north side of the house because you're going to be going fast. The south side of the house is much more visible. So all in all, staff thinks that it does meet the standards and guidelines and is approvable. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners Cope and Epperson, please give the committee report.
Upon the site visit, we did examine both locations. There's also a lot of shrubbery on the property. So seeing that section of the house even as a walker and being kind of the other building being so large next door, it's really difficult to see back there anyway. I believe either window would be appropriate. In working with the city building department and housing department in Arbor, they may end up having a recommendation from them to have both windows egress, because there's two separate spaces in the basement. I'm not sure if that will come up or not, but I would conditionally approve both if they had to, according to the building code.
I agree with Commissioner Cope that, as he stated, there is quite a bit of shrubbery in the front of the residence that does hide that side quite a bit. The windows are set back, I think, far enough with the location of where the front porch is. They are, as Steph pointed out, since the street is one way, you really don't see it. It's not one of the main elevations. So I think that, as Commissioner Cope pointed out and Jill pointed out, either window, I think, would be appropriate to do this for. The rear window would only be marginally better, because you would still see the size of the window well is still large enough that they're pretty much right adjacent to one another. So
Can I add one more comment? The other building that Ms. Thatcher pointed out next door also has two egress type windows, almost parallel with both of these windows. They are covered with cement and tile, but there's definitely a well there and deep windows.
All right. Would the applicant please come forward, give your name for the record, please sign in, and do you have anything to add to the staff report or committee report? Name first.
Yes, hello, my name's Joe Galunas, and I'm the general contractor. I'm not the owner. I do work for the owner. I'd like to say, you've given very careful consideration to this project, and I thank you. It's obvious you've gone out and looked at it, and I agree with you that it's a neat house. The lady has owned it for just a few years, and if it's not original owners, it was owner-occupied up until now. So she plans to maintain it well. That's one of the things that she likes very much about it. And when we talked about how to do this project, having this where it's fairly low impact is important to her, as it is to you. So that's about all I have to add, really.
Great. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak about the project? Nope. All right. Commissioners, do you have any additional questions for the applicant?
I'll ask one question.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, I'll let you sign in and then ask a question. Can you just describe briefly how you intend to widen the masonry opening? Like what sort of method are you going to use in terms of, you have a masonry opening with masonry units? Are you cutting them? Are you removing them, infilling with cut units, or just those kind of items?
What we'll be doing is, you're correct, it's masonry units. So once we excavate, as you get below grade, it's no longer the decorative block. It actually turns to stone below grade, so that'll be kind of a skilled masonry kind of project. But everything above grade, we're planning on making a cut probably only on one side through the masonry, but then filling it on the end. I mean, we've actually done repairs on these similar textured blocks where they start to spall. We've sometimes repaired them in the past, and we'll pack them out where they look reasonably similar to how they were originally. So that's what we're planning on doing with the cut. Like I say, will be about 6 inches wider due to having to have the larger window to meet the lighting and ventilation code. But it won't just look like some guy ran through it with a saw. We'll ease the edges, and the part that you can see, which won't be much because the window will sit kind of prominently toward the very front of that opening. Mm-hmm. It'll look reasonably consistent with the other side. Now, as soon as we get below grade, there's stone. So it's going to have, well, it's going to look like stone. But when we tooth the stone back in, we'll tuck point it and make it look what we feel is appropriate for the situation.
Thank you.
I have a question. So in the packet that you provided later, you provided this image?
Right.
Which shows the 6-inch wood ties and the base of the well being slightly above the window sill. Is that
Right,
your plan on
yes.
this? We just don't have in a section to identify that. I'm guessing that's
Oh,
what your
right.
plan is.
That's the plan exactly. In fact, what we often do, we often dig the window wells extra deep just so that snow and water buildup aren't a problem. In this case, I had a conversation with Jill, and she said it's got a better chance of improving if we don't need a railing around it. There's a certain height below which you need a railing, so we plan to bottom fill it with a drainage bed material so that the base of the window well is at a height that it won't require a railing. But yet there'll be an area for water to perk down there so that should you get a deluge in there, you're not asking the window to be an aquarium.
Yeah. And then my other question was similar to the drainage around the house. So can we go to an existing image? So I see and this is a little bit of the review committee and timing of rain that you may have been out there, but it looks like a fairly wet area. Is that an accurate assumption, or was it just this one time that you were out there?
I believe it was the one time we got some pretty good rain on
Okay.
Sunday, and Saturday. Anybody noticed that?
Yeah, just a bit.
It seemed like the lot had pretty good drainage to
Okay.
me. It's up on a hill, and from west to east, it is sloping downhill through to the next block.
Yeah, all right.
Sure. And I'd like to add to that this house predates drain tiles and effective drain solutions, and it's quite a dry basement. That area was finished by previous owners years ago, probably many decades ago, and doesn't show any evidence of water infiltration.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Jill, just verify this for me if you don't mind. We can't condition that they save the window, is that correct?
Correct.
So we can't condition that you save the window, but would you be open to stating that you would save the window in case someone else in the future wants to reverse it and put it back the way it was?
Right, yes, we could. I think the main frame around it is somewhat deteriorated.
It wasn't,
It
doesn't
wasn't even
look
intact.
like
I
it.
can't tell from the pictures, so I'm trying to understand.
it was not intact,
Sure.
from what I could tell.
What
So-
we usually do is we usually save the sash,
Yeah,
usually more for if it's needed on another window. Sometimes things will happen. Someone will run a lawnmower through a window.
right.
It's nice to have another one there.
It's just nice to know that it's not getting thrown out.
Right, yes.
Historic.
I'd like to add one more thing. We plan to stain that window well, just a brown, so it's not so stark. I think you saw the one picture of another window well we did, and it kind of jumps at you. It's just a treated lumber. And it's not very hard just to get a stain, just roll some stain on that, and just make it look a little more like it grew there.
All right, any further questions? All right, I will now close the public hearing portion of the application. The applicant may please be seated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Would any commissioners like to make a motion regarding this application?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Commissioner Coe.
Keep going. Practice in case you don't show up. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 511 Elizabeth Street, a contributing property in the Old Fourth Ward Historic District, to replace two rear windows with larger rear windows as proposed.
How about to replace one window on the north side with an egress window as proposed? It's not you, it's me.
I was gonna say. Okay. I'd like to start my motion over.
Sure.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 511 Elizabeth Street, contributing property in the Old Fourth Ward Historic District, to replace one basement window with a larger egress window. The work is appropriate in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Arbor Historic District guidelines, especially those for windows and safety codes, and the Secretary of Interior's standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for windows, neighborhood setting, and health and safety.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Any discussion on the motion? All right, I have something to bring up, at least in terms of staff's general concern on the Secretary of Interior's guidelines for the windows that had mentioned recommended designing and installing additional windows on the rear or other non-character defining elevations if required by new use. So I kind of take this as interpretation of looking at the building as a whole for its historic resource. And to me, what characterly defines this building is primarily the front and the windows themselves. So can you go to a front elevation? So this is, a typical gable with a front porch. The windows are really well defined with the dividing lights. And to me, this is really the character defining feature of this house. The side elevations have some character defining features a little bit in terms of their windows and the window placements. But this to me is an entire, this is the view that really captures its historical character. So its placement either forward or further back, as long as it's on the side to me, and of course with this adjacency to the neighboring property, and makes it seem okay. Those are my thoughts. Any other thoughts?
I would agree that the placement of the egress well here does not destroy the character, the historic integrity of the home.
Any additional comments?
I support the project.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 All those opposed to the motion, please say no. All right, your motion carries. Your application has been approved, and you will receive a written decision from staff. Please note that you must apply for any required building permits. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sure. All right. Next item on the agenda is F3, 612 Lawrence Street. Ms. Thatcher.
This two-story craftsman bungalow first appears in city directories in 1917 as the home of traveling salesman Arthur J. Foster and his wife Florence. Features stucco cladding, a full-width stuccoed porch, a stuccoed chimney on the east elevation, a steeply pitched roof with street and rear-facing shed dormers, exposed rafter tails, and tripled and paired windows. The site is located on the south side of Lawrence Street, east of North Division and west of South State Street. It's one house in from the corner of Lawrence and State. And the application is to enlarge a pair of 9-light casement windows on the rear elevation to meet bedroom egress requirements. The windows open onto a rear screen porch. This is the southeast corner of the house. If you walk down the left side of the house, that's where the driveway is. It leads to a garage. And if you were walking down the left side of the house, you would come to the back corner, and this is it. This is the shed roof off. This is the steeply pitched roof off the back with the exposed rafter tails. This is a little porch that at some point was screened in with just wood frames and screens. You can see that there's a nice rear entrance door. I believe it goes into the kitchen on the back of this porch. Kind of hard to see in since it has been screened, but at one point it was open. But the two windows that we're talking about are straight north.
You have a good photo on that.
Yeah, there are lots of good photos in the packet too. And there's the windows that we're talking about. These two windows are casements. You can see that they have 9 panes each. They match windows that are around the driveway side of the house, where there are several of these in a row. There may be a photo of those in the packet as well. Behind the chimney. Yeah, there are 3 more of these on the other side of the house. So the application is to enlarge this pair of windows by making them taller by going down. And this is also to allow the conversion of a downstairs dining room into a bedroom. The house is a single-family rental. There are 2 bedrooms upstairs and no other bedrooms in the house. So they'd like to convert the dining room to a bedroom on the main floor. But there is no second means of egress, so these are rear-facing windows that would go from 28 inches wide and 34 inches tall to 28 inches wide and 48 inches tall. So effectively dropping this sill down another 14 inches. I talked to the applicant about the possibility of replacing just one of them, which would meet the egress requirements, but I really felt pretty strongly that that would result in a really funky looking back wall of the house, and that it would be more appropriate, even though these windows are both presumed to be original to the house, it would be more appropriate to increase the size of both of them or not at all. The house has a really shallow backyard. I don't have a photo of that here. There may be one in the packet, but there's really no place to go. It's a small lot, shallow backyard. There's just not even a possibility for expansion. And I sort of think of it as if someone had asked for an addition on the back of this house, it would probably have blown out these two windows anyway. And this is sort of in lieu of an addition. They are architecturally interesting. But I do like that there are more of them on the side of the house, so they won't be completely lost on the structure. There are some drawings included. There's a little bit of additional information on this one as well that was loose on your packet. There's a floor plan. This is kind of hard to see. This is from the building permit application. This is Lawrence Street up top. There's a living room. The kitchen is here, and right here is the door going into the kitchen, and these two windows are here. The dining room is this area here. It has two smallish openings that would very easily have a door installed in them in order to make this a bedroom sleeping space. Lots more pictures of the interior as well in the packet. Secretary of Interior standards that best apply. I've already read 2 to you, and 9 and 10. From the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for windows, recommended is designing and installing additional windows on rear or other non-character defining elevations if required by new use. Not recommended is introducing a new design that is incompatible with the historic character of the building. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines, it is not appropriate to remove or radically change a window that is important in defining the overall historic character of the property. And I'm looking to see what information we have. Oh, there it is. New Anderson windows to be vinyl clad exterior. Natural wood interior, paint exterior to match, maintain same exterior trim, size and color. I don't think there would be any way that replacement windows here would be confused for original windows because the original windows, the 9 pane, are so unique. That's really not something that I'm concerned about. So staff does feel that the proposed egress windows are appropriately located, that the application meets Historic District Commission standards and guidelines. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners Cope and Apperson, do you have comments on the review committee report?
I mostly agree with staff findings. One thing that we spoke with the applicant about was just getting some specifics on the actual window he's planning on using. I did see the description that you had. Typically, I think, there's certain windows that we approve and don't approve. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't just going to be a couple of cheap double-hung vinyl white windows getting thrown in there. But other than that, clarification on the actual windows, I would definitely approve the application.
I agree with Commissioner Cope. I think that the windows are being located around the back of the house, especially in a little nook on the porch there. They're not visible as much as, of course, it would be that the front and the side elevations are, I think, the most visible portions of the house, definitely. And the windows are, I think, character defining. And while these are nice, I think just lowering the sill and keeping the same width is appropriate. And I definitely would, keeping it for both windows makes the most sense. And I also had some reservations about knowing what type of window is being replaced is, I think, important. So I support this.
All right, thank you. Would the applicant please come forward Give your name for the record. I don't think you need to sign in again. Do you have anything
I'm
to add?
Joe
to the staff
Galunas.
report?
It's nice to see you all again.
See you again, thank you.
Okay. I would like to mention something about the windows, and I apologize for not having more information that got put together rather hurriedly. We're planning on using an Anderson 400 series window, which I understand is what most people like. I spoke with Tim Bradburn down at Fingerly Product Showcase, and he told me that mullions can be installed to replicate, not completely duplicate what there is there. So that's a 9-light window. We could either go 9-light or 12-light, maybe to keep the size of them balanced. He said it's actually not a true divided light. He calls it a simulated divided light. You know, there's a mullion mounted on the front and the back, and there's a filler between the glass to give a very good appearance of being a true divided light. And he and I both would be amenable to whatever the board considered. Should we go with 9-light and stretch the individual lights, or perhaps add a whole other set of lights below there? But I can assure you that it'll be the Anderson 400, you know, they'll be set to swing out like this, and that will replicate the lights on them. And then the outside of it will be painted to match, although it comes with the pre-finished perma-shield, whatever it is. It takes paint well, and we can replicate the paint there pretty well.
All right, are there any members of the public who'd like to speak about the project? All right. Are any commissioners have questions for the applicant? I have one.
Okay.
I'm apt to say no divided light at all, no simulated divided light at all, just keep it as a bare glass casement.
Right.
Would you be open to that?
That'll be fine with us too. It would save money and allow more light in.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a little bit of a dark room. There is a lot of dark trim inside there, if you've seen the other pictures. And in the summertime when it's bright, that's great. But in the wintertime, you know, they're already a little bit light starved in the house. So that would be appreciated for a couple of reasons.
Yeah. All right, and then Commissioner Hall had mentioned on the last project the saving of the windows, and this one really hits it for me on this one because they are pretty unique fixed divided light windows. Would you try and keep those, I guess? Same, though we can't require it.
Yes, we certainly can. We certainly can. The front porch is a masonry front porch that has kind of a bomb shelter storage underneath it. That's a great place to save all doors and windows. You know, the ground drains pretty well, so we can absolutely save those at no inconvenience to the homeowner. They won't get thrown out during turnovers. They'll be safely out of the way.
Okay. Any other questions out there? When we get to the discussion, we'll ask other thoughts on the divided light issues. But all right, I would now close the public hearing portion of the application. The applicant, will you please be seated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And would any commissioner like to make a motion regarding this application? Okay. Commissioner Hall.
I thought Max wanted to do it again. Give him the opportunity. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 612 Lawrence Street, a contributing property in the Old Fourth Ward Historic District, to replace 2 rear windows with larger rear windows as proposed. The work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area. It meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines, especially those for windows and safety codes, and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for windows, neighborhood setting, and health and safety.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Is there any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Hall.
I would completely support you on the no divided lights.
Okay. Any other thoughts out there?
On the divided light issue?
Or anything?
I suppose that I would, I certainly support no divided lights. I feel like if the owner wanted divided lights and had a good argument for it, they would certainly not be confused with original divided lights.
That's true, too.
And that being on that issue, I don't think there would be sort of any question there. So I guess I would support no or some other, alternative.
fine.
Yeah, but
And then I wanted to address one of the City of Ann Arbor design guidelines, the not appropriate for windows, which says removing or radically changing a window that is important in defining the overall historic character of the property. Certainly here we are removing a fairly character-defining feature. However, it doesn't define overall the historic character, and being that there are many other windows around the building that define it in a very similar way, losing two for the means of health and safety seem okay.
I agree with you, John.
All right. Any other thoughts? Vote. All right. Where are we? All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All those opposed, say no. All right, your motion carries. Your application has been approved, and you will receive written decision from staff. Please note that you must apply for any building permits. Thank you again. On to the next order of business is F4, 1147 Traver Road. Staff.
So this one somewhere has a survey sheet from the Broadway Historic District, hopefully attached. But it is in the Broadway Historic District. It's a very small and very old house. It's located on the west side of Traver Road at the southwest corner of Bowen Street. So this is Traver. Bowen is over here to the right. Behind it, immediately behind it, is the railroad tracks. And the applicant is seeking HDC approval to construct a 394 square foot addition on the rear of a 789 square foot home. Replace the existing vinyl siding with 5-inch exposure cementitious siding. And the application mentions some other work, but doesn't give any details, and the applicant has agreed to address that other work in a different application should they move forward. So this is a Monday photograph of the house. If you look in the staff report, there are other photographs that show it with tan vinyl siding, and they've already removed it. So this is what the house looked like in 2007. When the Broadway Historic District looked like it was going to get approved, the previous owner very quickly slapped up vinyl siding, and the new owners have taken it down 10 years later. So now we're back to non-original asphalt shingle siding, which I'll talk about in a minute. All right, here's what we're calling the south side of the house. It has two front doors. It does have an interesting history. The house was owned by the headmaster of the school across the street that some of you know because it's owned by Tom Stolberg. And boarders lived in this front room, and it was supposedly walled off or something from the rest of the house where the headmaster lived. And this was just a single room up front. So when you look at the floor plan, figuring out where boarders lived in this house with an owner occupant is
Thin walls.
yeah, it's a little baffling, but that's what it was like then. Probably this front window is, not an original feature, but could be old, don't know when it was added to the building. It's a very simple house. It's got gables on either side. It's got a wing off the back, but really it's quite simple. It has largish, nice double-hung windows, a brick chimney that was presumably added much later, probably not during the period of significance. And you can see it's got a parking space on the side. That dumpster is probably full of vinyl siding. And here's the back door. You can see it has a sort of a offset here, like maybe this was a rear porch that was infilled at some point, but it's got this strange roof line. So here's the plot plan, the site plan. Existing house is here. If you look at the zoning setbacks, there's really, it's already non-conforming. It's already built into the rear required setback. You could put a little addition here, but it would be a very awkward shape and space. So because there's really no good place to put an addition that won't need a variance, the owners are going with put the addition behind the house, which is the most appropriate from the historic district point of view, and also preserves more of the yard to the north. And like I said, this is the railroad tracks right here, so. Proposed floor plan, there's an existing floor plan in your packet if you're interested in looking at it, but the proposed one shows the layout. Here's the addition. It's got a small bump out in the back for a closet and some storage. It's got a 2.5 foot protrusion to the north. It is not flush. It's not inset like we usually request that additions be on the back of a building, mainly because this lot is so wonky that it's going to be hard to fit a meaningful conforming addition. And the advantage of this is it makes it look a little bit less like a bowling alley. When you're looking at it from the street, it gives you a little bit of relief here, since a little bit of relief going south is really not very feasible on this building. This is the north elevation. This is where that little 2.5 foot protrusion is. You can see they're just tying into the existing roof. There's a new gable that mimics the one farther toward the front. Part of the application is to replace those asphalt shingles that you see on the house now with new cementitious lap siding. Once you've, because there's nothing underneath those asphalt shingles, they were removed at some point. So lap siding is certainly more appropriate. It doesn't really help, though, to differentiate the addition because that will also have the same cementitious lap siding. I don't think that varying the size of the siding just on a modern rear addition really makes much sense, since none of it will be original material. The foundation materials will certainly distinguish it well, though, and the roof line is dropped a little bit here on this back section, which I think is also a good thing. When you go around, you can see that the existing roof is still going to be that strange shape connecting into the new cross gable. And I think that will also help distinguish where the house ended before this addition was built. Very simple, steel door in the back. This is the south elevation. The only thing about this entire application that gives me pause is that this wall is flush from the original to the new work, but the gable does tie in here. You have that strange roof line. You've got the change in foundation materials. The windows will be new. They're shown as the same dimensions as the existing windows, but I hate to make them any smaller. I hate to make them any larger. It's just kind of proportionate the way it is. So I'm okay. It's a little bit thin to go just on foundation materials and a slightly different roof line, but I think it's enough on this house given the sort of extenuating circumstances of the lot. So as I said before, they will need to get a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals before building permits can be issued. But from the Secretary of the Interior's standards, numbers 2, 9, and 10 are the ones that best apply. From the guidelines for additions, recommended is constructing a new addition so that there's the least possible loss of historic materials, so that character-defining features are not obscured, damaged, or destroyed. Also recommended is locating the attached exterior addition at the rear of the building and limiting its size and scale, and designing new additions in a manner that makes clear what is historic and what is new. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for all additions, it's appropriate to limit the size and scale of the addition so that it does not diminish or visually overpower the building. The addition's footprint should not exceed 1/2 of the original building's footprint or 1/2 of the original building's total floor area. This one is at 50% and 50%. It's fine. So, staff's opinion is that the addition does not destroy historic materials, features, spaces, or spatial relationships that characterize the property, that the new addition is differentiated from the old by the foundation, windows, roof lines, and siding, and is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials, and relationship to the house and the surrounding neighborhood. And I thought that there is I thought that I had the picture in here. It might be in the packet somewhere. Up in the attic, you can see some of the original wood lap siding where it was left when one of these additions was piled on. So they are matching the exposure of that wood lap siding. Yeah, it's in your packet. It's here. Yeah, on the right-hand side of the photo in the attic. Yep. Yeah. So pretty straightforward. So it will certainly have the appearance, it'll be going back to the appearance that it had many years before. And staff does recommend approval of the application. Thank you.
All right, Commissioners Cope and Epperson, will you give the committee report?
I generally agree with Ms. Thatcher on this application. I don't know that it fits our, complete mold for additions and the guidelines for additions. I believe that the applicants have a long way to go here, getting through zoning and planning also for variances. The one thing that she mentioned where in the back where it kind of bumps out a little bit, it made kind of sense, like looking at it on site, that it would bump out right there because it would just kind of feel like a torpedo if it kept stepping back. And there was a significant addition done in the 40s, I believe, too, where they did inset that side of the original house. If you can see it in the back, that second addition back there is inset, and then it would bump back out for the third addition, I guess. I would like to see just a little inset or outset on the other side of the house, so it isn't a complete straight run on the back, just to add one more just character defining feature to differentiate from the original home.
I agree with Ms. Thatcher and Commissioner Cope. Looking at this house, I think the character defining features are really not so much its overall size, but the scale and proportion, and especially the roof lines. I think they really define, I think, the layout and planning of the house itself. And I think that the proposed addition starts to, I think, I'm sorry, I can't think of the right word, help enhance that feature a little bit. But I also agree that the one flush side that on the east side of the building, or the west side, excuse me, I would like to see a little bit more of a character defining feature between those, between the new and the old, because the size of the house is such a small footprint that if that facade begins to become much more elongated, I think that's going to start to break up the more character defining features of the house itself. But like I said, I think that the roof line that's proposed that matches in the front does help with that feature. So again, I support this project, but I also agree that with Commissioner Cope that there could be a few changes to just small incremental changes that I think would help distinguish it a little bit more.
All right. Would the applicant please come forward, state your name for the record, and please sign in.
Good evening. Scott Bowers, Bowers and Associates Architects. I like what you said. We would enjoy to be able to put another a little bump out for that. That would be the east facade.
Yep. West facade.
West facade. Sorry, west facade.
Thanks, South. Well, there's a north arrow.
Yeah, but
It would be the west.
Mostly.
Quasi-west.
Okay, I'm with you.
the road goes like this.
Northwest.
You go this way in the road.
Okay.
Any event, we took on this project. The reason why we removed this siding is because we hate vinyl siding to begin with. We were really excited about, my client was really excited about taking over this and turning it back into something more realistic and appropriate for the home. We looked at several different options. We did come talk to Jill a couple times regarding where we could put this addition, and the result was to put it off the rear. Even if we had to go to ZBA, and this was the first step to go there. Our intent is to keep on and fixing it up as is phase one, and move on to phase two if we're so fortunate to get through the ZBA. But we would be excited to add on that addition if that was a requirement.
All right. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak about the project? All right, commissioners, have any additional questions?
Yeah, just a couple more. We touched maybe a little bit on it at the walkthrough. Architecturally, creating a division between the front and the back on that west side, I don't know necessarily, and the commissioners can see with me, but could it be something as simple as like a trim board or some sort of rim board on the back side of the addition that you would see kind of on other homes, like a rim board at the top of the roof line where it meets. It doesn't necessarily need to change the design or the architecture. You know, it can still be flat, but I'd just like to see something there. It actually shows something there in the picture.
The freeze board.
Yeah. I guess I didn't notice that before.
I mean, it could be that we just add another inch of insulation on that.
Or an inch, yeah,
We
bump
just
it out
move the
1 or
facade
2
out.
inches.
Right.
It just, what it reminds me, it doesn't look like an old house, it won't look like an old house with the new siding and new roof and everything. I don't want to, I just would hate for it to look like a modular home, you know? Because that's the side of when you're driving up Traver, that's what you see. And it's kind of up on that hill, and it's already next to that, you know, the 70s duplex, which is definitely not a contributing building in
I
the
would love
historic
to,
district.
if I could pull it out 3-4 inches and just have a return, that would, in my mind, fit better.
That's what I would like to see on it. So I would be willing to do a conditional approval on that condition.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I had a question.
Go ahead.
Hi, Scott. So looking at the floor plan, I see that there's a foyer on the floor plan and a new door on, I guess that's the east side then.
Yeah, we're.
There's no site plan, so I don't really know your intention for how you're entering the home. I know there's already 2 entry doors on the front. In terms of how you intend to do the layout of the site, is that going to be used as your main front door, or is that your side door or back door? Like, just so I can, I don't see a site plan, so just let us know kind of what is the site plan going to look like as far as you know right now, and talk about like front door, side door.
Sure.
Kind of thing.
Realistically, there's 2 front doors.
Yeah.
The one furthest to the west is going to be a little patio area, because we don't need 2 side by side.
Right.
So the very front door, we're going to remain as a front door from the street.
Okay.
But as you can see where that dumpster is, that's more than likely where the parking's going to happen. And then over to the right of that is a grassy area, which is the only grassy open area that there is on the lot.
Sure.
So that'll be used as their exterior area,
Got it.
Outdoor lawn area.
Got it. I just wanted to make sure like the spatial relationship of the site wasn't sort of shifting where that was going to be maybe like the main entry of the house or something, but it sounds
No.
like that's not the intention.
No, it's not the intention at all.
On the plans, is there a window on the, I think it's the east wall of the kitchen? On the existing site plan, on the existing floor plan, it shows that there's a window there, and then
That window's going to remain.
that will remain. Okay, it's
Yes.
just not on the floor plan, it's on the elevation.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
that window's
good.
going to remain.
And then, could you please describe your design intent for the new deck that you just spoke of? Like, what kind of materials are going to be used on that deck that you're putting in where there's that one extra front door?
Masonry. We're going to do it as it's a large amount. I think he must have owned a concrete company. Large amount of concrete there right now. So what we'd like to do is come out, square it off, and then put a masonry paver on top.
Okay. And the walls would be concrete walls or
They'd match the foundation.
match the foundation? Thank you.
All right, I have some,
Ro-
go ahead,
if-
Commissioner Coe.
So there is the new door. Is that in the application? The foyer?
No,
Or foyer door?
it's actually not, because we were debating on that. It's phase 1 and phase 2.
Okay.
So that's probably where that got screwed up a little bit. But
Okay.
it doesn't show up on your elevations, no.
Okay. And then is the cement porch in your application this time?
I thought it was called out as being there as a patio.
Yeah.
Okay.
You mentioned phase 1 and phase 2. Is the scope of the work defined on the set of drawings in terms of phase 1 or phase 2, or is everything that we see here phase 1?
Everything you see there is phase 1 and phase 2.
Okay.
Everything that's shaded on that drawing is phase 2.
All right, so we're approving everything, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then I had questions on the existing windows. So the existing windows, they're a double hung with no divided light, is that accurate?
Yes.
And then do they have any weight wells or pockets or anything?
They don't have much of anything, but they don't have any weights, but we're going to keep them refurbished, all of them.
Okay.
Matter of fact, even in this, if we do the second phase, we're going to keep that window as well. There's one off the rear.
Okay. I could see being right next to the railroad tracks, how you redo those windows will make a big difference on sound and not just performance, but sound.
Yeah, not so much of that. That's why
Yeah.
it's great,
So-
the additions there.
So right now, I see that there might be some storms on some of them, maybe not.
There's aluminum storms on most of them.
Are you planning on keeping the storms at this point?
No, I wanted to go and get wood storms
Is
fitted.
that part of phase 1 and phase 2, or is that?
That'd be part of,
Farther
I
down
didn't
the
say
line.
that, but it's part of the overall, because I don't want the aluminum ones on there.
Okay, so we don't see that in this application.
I'll come back to, I guess,
So
Joe.
it may have to be a separate application.
Yes.
Okay. And then, Jill, there's a photo somewhere that shows a little detail or a little close-up of the foundation walls. So I noticed that the foundation walls were poured secondarily, so someone came around and it could have been that it was a stone. Do you know if there's a crawl space underneath?
It's stone up in front,
There's a good one.
and they poured them on the outside as well as some enhancements on the inside. The crawl space is poured.
Okay. So the image that we're looking at right now on the screens, you could see that little, I guess, amendment that they've added to the outside of the foundation walls.
They
Is
put
that
a little
something?
reveal on it, yeah.
Yeah, are you gonna try and do that on the addition, or are you gonna try and line it up and do it conventionally where the siding overhangs the foundation walls?
I was gonna do it conventionally with
Okay.
siding overhangs.
All right,
Well, that would
just-
definitely
Those
differentiate.
are
the-
differentiate too, so. These are all just little details that help us.
I understand.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
I'm just reviewing the application really, again, one more time. When we make a motion, there is not a motion for the front porch, the step, the cement porch steps to come out and become even. I don't see that in the application. And I don't see in the application the addition to the foyer door off the east side of the home. That'd be creating a new opening in the existing home.
Yes, I agree. I missed both of those in my
Okay.
review. The porch is shown, the footprint is shown on the proposed floor plan.
Yeah, we see it.
But
And
there
it's
are
got a-
no materials or steps.
And it's got a
Um,
dark line on the elevation.
Yeah, yeah. So it's on there, it's just not called out, it's just not clear what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are steps. Are there steps
I wasn't putting
intended?
steps
Right,
back,
okay.
no.
Oh, okay, Okay.
And it's low enough where you don't need a guard? Sorry for interrupting.
True.
Okay.
Okay, so that's probably shown accurately. So it's up to you guys if you want to consider a concrete porch in that location in those dimensions and a new door opening. You wouldn't get to review the door, but that could be a staff approval since I review non-original door replacements anyway.
Yeah, you're probably replacing the other front door too. I imagine the
one's a
aluminum half
Stan-
moon,
One's a Stanley half
Yeah,
moon,
yeah.
something or other, and
really nice door.
yeah.
Can you go to
No,
that
we'd
east
like to put
elevation?
something a little more appropriate in.
East.
Okay.
It
Well,
is.
whatever,
Isn't this the east?
north,
So where's the
it's north.
North.
staff
That
report
one.
for the
That one.
door?
Yeah, so the door would be between this little corner
And
and
the
the
next
window
window
that you
back.
see here.
And the window
Yeah.
stays.
Window stays.
Okay.
Yeah, the door would be set back,
Yep. Cool.
so from that angle, you couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And can you go to the rear elevation? So there's a door back there and a window back there.
That
Right.
looks like a modern steel door.
Yeah.
With the storm, well.
Yeah, the window's an original window. That's one of them that we would save if the addition gets approved.
So in the motion, should we add in the approval of the door with staff approval
What does it currently say?
and the approval of the cementous slate porch, blah, blah.
Well, I wanted the walls to be concrete, but the porch itself will be a paver.
Okay. Or do we wait on detail
Yeah.
for that for staff approval?
If you want to add it in, that would be easy enough.
Okay,
I mean, I can just give it a staff review
yeah,
when, the building permit is in, but I can, make notes on there.
yeah, just to get them as
Additions
far
to the
along
application.
here as
Yeah.
possible.
Yep, yep.
So I'd hate for them to have to come
Yeah.
back for a 5x5 porch.
And you may want to consider too then, we don't, a lot of times we ask for the ventilation, plumbing stacks and kitchen, bathroom,
Well understood on the.
fan exhausts, all those locations would be good to bring
Yeah,
in with her on a staff approval. Can we do that? We can do
Staff
those as
approval.
staff.
Agreed.
Yeah, I do them every day at staff.
Yeah,
We
so
have a
bring those
radon
in
issue
to her
too,
as well.
which has to
Yeah,
figure out.
that'll
what
all
we're
go
gonna do
through
with
Jill
that.
after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready to make a motion.
All right, any other questions out there? Okay, I will now close the public hearing portion of the application. The applicant may please be seated. Would a commissioner like to make a motion regarding this application?
I'll
Commissioner
make a
Coe.
motion. Let me just give me a second. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 1147 Traver Road, a contributing property in the Broadway Historic District, to construct a rear addition and remove vinyl siding on the following conditions: that 5-inch cementous lap siding, cementous
Cementitious.
lap siding is installed with smooth side out. Also creating a new opening for a foyer entryway on the west side of the home, and to construct a new front porch according to the plans on the front side of the home. The work as conditioned is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, materials, and relationship to the house and the surrounding area, and meets the City of Ann Arbor Historic District guidelines for all additions, and the Secretary of State Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular standards 2, 9, 10, and the guidelines for new additions and district or neighborhood setting.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner White.
Commissioner Cope, do you want to include that the addition on the southwest corner on the southwest corner of the existing house may protrude up to 6 inches or
in-
whatever.
Included in the
Is there
motion, the southwest corner of the addition may protrude up to 6 inches outside the original home.
And do we need to amend or modify the reference to west foyer to, we determined it was the north?
Yeah, I already did that.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
acceptable. All right, and is there any further discussion? Folks out there? I would say this is a neat little house, and I enjoyed the fact that someone's trying to take care of it. Every time I go by it, my son goes to school nearby there, and we bike there all the time, and it definitely seems like out of place because of the house right next door, the 70s, 80s thing that was added right next to it. And each time I keep looking at it going, oh, look at that tiny little thing, and, you know, that's really neat. So I'm glad that someone's trying to make something happen with it. I wanted to address specifically kind of the guidelines, and I think it does a really good job in terms of the new additions, in terms of the exterior size, scale, and relationship to the building itself. In terms of the adjacent structures, well, we don't really have much to compare with because the building next to it is not part of the district. So all in all, I think it meets the criteria pretty well. Any other comments out there?
So in the motion for, should we give staff approval to, or give permission for staff approval for review of any changed drawings here, adding the extra 6 inches and storm windows and the porch specifics?
I don't think you need to put it in the motion.
Okay.
It's implicit that,
Yeah, but you'll
that I have to.
you'll
take
see it
over.
one more time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make sure that's all okay. But thank you.
Yeah. Good luck on the windows. Those are a lot of fun. No, really, they are.
Don't watch the replay on that one.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
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 All those opposed, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved, and you will receive written decision from staff. Please note that you must apply for any required building permits. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, again.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah, good luck with the zoning. All right, next on the agenda is F5, 332 East William Street. What's that?
This building, known as the Washtenaw Apartments, was constructed in 1925 and replaced a large two-story dwelling. 3.5-story red brick apartment building features a stone base and trim decorative stone front entry with Corinthian pilasters and faux arches, and 6/1 on the front elevation, double-hung windows in pairs and singles. The building is U-shaped with a narrow center courtyard for light and ventilation. There's a 1925 sandboard map drawing on the front page of the staff report. The configuration is very much like that today. Sites on the south side of East William Street, east of Hamilton Place, and west of South Division. And the applicant is seeking HDC approval to alter 9 window openings near ground level by enlarging or cutting new openings and installing aluminum-clad windows and infilling 1 window. This is a neat building. It's quite large. It's on a block with a few other large structures, though also a lot of 2-story houses. And this is the front. A lot of original windows, some neat stonework around the doorway. This stone base, really sort of distinguishes the building. This is the right side of the building, the west side, and this is the driveway. It's pretty narrow, and it leads back to 4 or 5 or 6 parking spaces in the back here. Most of the windows that we're looking at are on the back corner of the building here. You can see how these windows march down the side. These are all occupied apartments. And the windows some of them are singles, some of them are pairs. The ones in question here start right here at this one, and then there's 1 or 2 beyond that, and then there's 1 or 2 around the corner on the back. This is the other side of the building. You can see that's even narrower, even closer to the property line, but no work is proposed on this side of the building. So view from the street when you're walking along either direction, Oops, sorry, I'm going the wrong way. The windows way back here are pretty much invisible. You'd have to really be standing on the sidewalk in the correct spot, get the right angle, and look back there. And even then, from this distance, it's a very deep building. I doubt that you could even recognize, if this work is done, which windows were altered and which ones were not. Here's the back. So the driveway is over here on the left. You pull in. There are a couple of window alterations proposed back here. This is the neighbor's garage. It's not on this property. I think it even showed up on that Sanborn. If you walk between the apartment building and the neighbor's garage, there's a small courtyard in the back here that's quite nice. You can see it has some trees. And then there's a fenced courtyard in the middle of the U that's not generally accessible. So here's the layout of the areas where the work is proposed. Right now, there are 2 unfinished apartments. They were never constructed for some reason. They've been used as storage. There are storage lockers down there, and part of this one is laundry room right now. So the proposal is to build a couple of minor walls and finish off these apartments that were always planned to be apartments since the building was designed. So the window work that has to take place is existing, to lower the sill on one existing window here, and to enlarge this window opening to go from a single to a double window, and to make them a little bit bigger. I'll show you some good details about these in a second. This is farther back on the building. There's a door farther back than midway along this west elevation, and then you get to the back corner. This is a new masonry opening. This is an enlarged masonry opening. This is a new masonry opening. There's just the one window back here now, and it's pretty small. Going around the back corner where I showed you those cars, new masonry opening on the back, enlarged masonry opening. Again, these are all close to grade. If you go all the way around the back, right now, in this area, there's a bike shed. You're going to have to rely on me and the review committee, because unfortunately I don't have any photos of the bike shed, but it's big and it's wooden and it's a shed. And they'd like to relocate it from, oh, I'm sorry, it's actually along this wall right now. They'd like to relocate it from where it is now and flip it around and put it over here. See the word shed here? This is the end of the shed down here. Same shed, just move it around and keep as many of the materials as possible. Okay, here's the west elevation. This is the street, West William. This is the driveway. These are the 5 openings we're talking about. I really think that this would have a minimal effect on the overall building. The symmetry is maintained. The new openings don't really ruin anything or, destroy the character-defining features that these windows are. On the south elevation, these are those one new and one enlarged openings by the driveway. This is the bike shed that's going to be pushed up against the wall. It will block off the U here, but it's already fenced that people don't get in there and do things that you don't want them doing in your interior courtyard. And then if you flip around to the other side of that back apartment, this opening right here would be bricked in, and this one is a new opening. And if we go back up to the floor plan, I think I can show you that. See how this one would be closed up, and this is the new one here. And if that is incorrect, the applicants could tell me, because I'm realizing that now that it seems a little bit unclear. Good drawings in the packet of how the sizes would get bigger. Same width opening for the one where the sill has to go down. It's just a few inches. Enlarged bedroom opening, you can see the original and how it would become wider and lower. Same thing on the other apartment here on the bottom. There are also existing and proposed window profiles that didn't make it onto a slide that are in the packet. And then there's some sections showing the windows. So from the Secretary of the Interior standards, best applied are 2, 9, and 10, which I've read to you already. Recommended from the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for windows are designing and installing additional windows on rear or non-character defining elevations if required by the new use. New window openings may also be cut into exposed party walls. Such design should be compatible with the overall design, but not duplicate the fenestration pattern and detailing of a character defining elevation. From the Guidelines for Health and Safety, recommended is complying with health and safety codes, including seismic code requirements, in such a manner that character-defining features, spaces, and finishes are preserved. From the Ann Arbor Historic District Design Guidelines for Safety Codes, it is not appropriate to alter, damage, or destroy character-defining spaces, features, and finishes. Staff believes that the proposed work is appropriate and has no negative effects on the historic building or its character-defining finishes. The window alterations are in rear elevations or far enough back on the side to be invisible from the public right-of-way and are distinguished from the original windows. I have few or no concerns about this application, and I'm realizing now, guys, that I may have conditioned infilling a window that's not actually proposed to be infilled, but when the applicant gets up, he can clarify that for us. Thank you.
All right, review committee, do you have anything to report?
Yeah, I guess I fully agree with staff on this one. During the review committee, they did state they weren't going to infill that window.
Oh,
That was
okay.
not part of their plan, and
Okay.
they're just going to use a shade or a piece of wood behind it or something. It seems like a straightforward project. There's a lot of windows there already. I don't think it'll be a noticeable change, and, you know, in Ann Arbor, more space is better. We need it.
I agree with Ms. Thatcher and Commissioner Cope. They're really, it's pretty straightforward. The windows are located far enough back and in the rear of the building that especially the new openings, they're pretty insignificant, I think, in terms of the overall size and scale of the building.
All right, would the applicant please come forward, state your name for the record, and please sign it? And if you have anything to add to the staff or review committee reports, please do so.
Yes, first of all, because of my age, and I've done this so much, you start over time, I decided I was going to read most of what I have to say instead of try to do it off the top of my head. So I'd like to say, first of all, good evening to chairperson and fellow members. My name is Jeffrey R. Gallatin. My address is 409 South Division, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48104. My phone number for the record is 734-368-0256. I'm the owner of the building at 332 East William, which used to be called the Washtenaw and is now known as Gallatin Manor, sort of to my own name. At any rate, the reason I'm here is to ask you to grant me permission to enlarge 4 windows into emergency escape windows and install 4 new windows so I can complete the remodeling of my building, both inside and outside, which I've been working on for approximately 40 years. I apologize, no, skip that part. Let me begin with some history. Even though I think this might not be necessary from listening to what you said and what Jill said and what Mr. Cope said and Anna said, I still would like to give you a little background anyway. I purchased the building from Drennan, a real estate appraiser, and this will just give you some knowledge, who was the second owner of the building and who owned it for approximately 40 years. He purchased it from a doctor who built the building and owned it for approximately 10 years. So I'm only the 3rd owner. Part of the reason that's important is had I been the 5th, 6th, or 7th owner, I probably wouldn't care about what really happened to the building. You may, but I might not as an owner. But because I was only the 3rd owner, no one really had a chance to do anything to destroy the character of the building, which was important to me. And I won't take much longer, I promise. The building was built between approximately 1922 and 1929. It was actually built in 1922, but I'm not going to argue with anybody. You can use any dates you want to use on it, but I'll just tell you that, and I have sufficient proof to back that and support it. And it was during that whole Great Depression era. It was originally designed as a 40-unit building, but the doctor only finished 36 units. Then, many years later, actually approximately 1964, 2 more units were completed, making it a 38-unit building. I purchased the building approximately 40 years ago, and because of its not because of its investment potential. Everybody would think that that's why I did it. It really was not. But because I'm from New York, and the building reminds me of New York, so it makes me feel like I'm home, because I grew up and lived in these types of buildings when I was in New York. And if you were, and I'm sure maybe you've all been, but if you were around New York, you'd understand what I mean, because it's a very typical type building. Anyway, I'm a realtor, builder, mechanical contractor, appraiser, property manager, and mortgage broker, and have been helping people buy, sell, remodel, develop property for the last 43 years. I enjoy purchasing older buildings with character and style and remodeling them back to what they used to be, then selling them to people who appreciate them for what they are and keeping the best of the best from my portfolio. I've spent a lot of time and money remodeling 332 East William. It's been long and slow because it's expensive, but it's not about money, or I wouldn't do it, and I really mean that. I have waited, got about another page and a half. I have waited to complete the remaining 2 units for 40 years, but the city has had the strict philosophy of low density, so it has not allowed any new multiple family construction, except for 1 building in 40 years. But when the economy fell apart in 2006 and 2008, and property was devalued by 33 to 50%, and the city lost a huge part of its income, suddenly they revisited high density and said, oh, it's not so bad. And hence, all the new cement skyscrapers popped up. So now I'd like to complete my project and would appreciate your granting me permission to expand and add the needed necessary windows. Your concern is whether I damage or destroy the historic nature of the building. At least I assume that's what your concern would be. But that it is a far bigger concern to me than it will ever be to you because of 2 things. What I just explained, and the fact that I've been a realtor for 43 years and spent most of my life trying to protect property rights, neighborhoods, communities, and towns and cities. Now I would be glad to answer any questions and would appreciate if you would give my architect, Scott Deal, who's here, who some of you may know, and opportunity to explain how he will assure you that I will be doing what's necessary to maintain the integrity of the historical property. And the only other thing I'd like to do, and then I'd gladly answer any of your questions, is I like to hand out, I'm trying not to go over my 3 minutes, but what this is a drawing.
Is it this one?
We already have it.
Here we go.
I
made copies for you. We already got it.
No, sorry. It was not done. The idea is to show you the existing space, to show you what it was, what's before and what it's after. The only 2 comments I'll make, and then I'll be done, is that originally Scott wanted to block up or brick up one of the windows. I just don't see any, and I respect him and would do it if he really wanted me to do it, but I don't see any reason to. We can just use a curtain, a drape, a blind, anything, period. So the second thing on that, I have one other thing that I think I've lost my thought, so I'll be done with it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for putting up with my conversation.
Thank you very much. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak about the project? I don't see anybody. Any commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Anyone?
No?
I have one quick one.
Sure.
Does the building have any 3 units?
Have any?
3-bedroom units?
No, it has a studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
I have a quick question also. Are you reusing the existing sills when you lower those like you're enlarging window openings, you're going to reuse the existing sill?
I think that's a good question, but to the wrong party.
Yeah.
I'll divert that to Scott, because that's why he's.
Come on up and speak to the mic so they can hear you at home.
Looking at using the same sill, it's a 5-inch, either limestone or precast.
Okay.
And that's what we'll be using on the new windows, so they match. And then you saw the view looking down the alley, and I think what's important is lining up the heads of these openings, so we're keeping the same masonry opening. And these windows have aluminum storm windows, and the new windows will not have storms, but we're going to keep the plane of the glass in line with the plane of the glass of the storm windows. So as you look down, even though you hardly see it, they'll all be on the same plane. And one other thing that was on the drawings, which I thought was kind of interesting, there were coal doors that then were replaced with the windows that are there now. So some of those windows in the back are, they're old, but they aren't, or at least the drawings had a coal doors. I presume that was put in and then altered, but kind of interesting history of it.
Any other questions for the applicants? All right, would any of the commissioners like to make a motion regarding this application? Oh, wait, hold on a second. I now close the public hearing portion of the application. The applicant may now be seated. There we go.
I was waiting.
Now would anybody like to make a motion?
Commissioners, I just want to amend my sample motion to remove and infill one window on the following condition. The rest of that sentence.
No, I didn't get it, or else I would.
Third
What
line.
was that? Yeah.
And infill one window, start crossing off there, and go all the way to the work is compatible.
So cross off and infill one window.
Yep.
On the following condition, east elevation. Half-inch.
And then start up where the work is conditioned.
Yeah, got it. I could make a motion.
Commissioner Rock?
Okay. I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the application at 332 East William Street, a contributing property in the East William Historic District, to install 9 new windows in enlarged or new openings. The work, as conditioned, is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines, especially those for windows and safety codes, and the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, in particular, standards 2, 9, and 10, and the guidelines for windows, neighborhood setting, and health and safety.
Support.
Commissioner White, seconds. Any discussion on the motion? I'll say something briefly. I've always loved these buildings in Ann Arbor. I've always loved these buildings in other cities. These buildings are, to me, what make the fabric of downtowns. This type of apartments, they're fantastic, especially with the light well. It showcases how daylighting was actually an important component of everyday life back in the 20s, and I wish developers thought of it now. So I've always loved these buildings. So I'm glad that you're taking care of it. I'm glad you're looking at it. I have one major concern in terms of the placement of the windowsills on that narrow wall, just with the snow buildup, any snow buildup on that area or any water wash. You can tell that window is going to take a lot of beating, especially with the lowering of the sill. So I do have a lot of building science concerns relating to it, but in terms of the overall guidelines and how it meets the guidelines, I think it's spot on. So I don't think it affects the character defining features of the building, because there's so much of the other building, of the rest of the building, that is so character defining. Any other comments out there? No? Okay. Let's move to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. All those opposed to the motion, please say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved, and you will receive a written decision from staff. Please note that you must apply for any building permits.
I'd just like to make one comment. I'd like to thank the two commissioners, both Max and Ann, even though they were short on time, and I probably kept them longer than I should. I appreciate them coming out looking at it, and I really mean it. But most of all, I really appreciate Jill. She could have been for me, against me, it doesn't make any difference. She really does a great job. And I now understand why Robert White made the comment when I first came in about what a good job she does.
Yeah.
And I really mean that. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure meeting you as well.
All right. Next on the agenda, F6, 712 West Washington Street. Ms. Thatcher.
This two-story gable fronter was first occupied in 1900 by Herman Almendinger, a packer at the Ann Arbor Organ Company. Features a full-width front porch and steeply pitched roof with corner returns. The original siding was covered by aluminum, but isn't anymore. The rear wing appears in 1916 and 1970 Sanborn maps as 1.5 stories, but since then the pitch has been altered to make it a full 2 stories. A rear porch was added between 1925 and 1931. In November of 2013, several modifications were approved, including removing a chimney, adding skylights, removing non-original elements, constructing a roof deck on the back, and other work. In 2014, an application to install a low deck in the side yard and a new rear-facing door leading to the deck was approved. Sites on the north side of West Washington Street between South 7th and Mulholland. I gotta say that this is one of my favorite rags to riches stories of the last few years. If you look at the staff report, there's a photo from 2008. This is one of those examples that I like to point to people to say, you know, you've got this house wrapped in aluminum. Look at how cool it could be. You gotta look past what's there on the surface, and I really appreciate what's been going on with this house. Look at you got up here. You've got a double window. You've got some fish scale shingles up there. You've got some wide board trim. It's all just looking fabulous right now. The porch was redone with some appropriate guardrails, new stairs, and at this point, this application is looking to do some yard improvements, patios, walkways. I think it'll be kind of the icing on the cake if it's approved by the HDC. Here's the side yard to the east. This is probably the most visible part of the yard, but you can see that it's up quite a bit. These houses are on that side of West Washington that it takes several steps to get up to the steps to the front porch. So there is some grade change there. And if you look toward the back, this is not this property's garage. This is the garage that's across the alley. That'll make more sense in a minute. And you can see where these chairs are. There's an existing low deck back there and a patio behind it. That's the garage that you saw in the photo. There's an alley here. This is the garage that belongs to this property. Next to it, there's some sort of pavered area. It probably has been used as a parking pad. It's kind of patio-esque. Some old steps go down in here somewhere. And then there's a lower patio. If you want to see better photos, the ones in the packet, which I may or may not have put in here, make more sense. But here you can see that maybe sort of paved area next to the garage. And then there's a jump down to the back door where there's a patio area, and the deck is over here. This door was approved by the HDC and cut into that wall. It was not there previously, and that's the new roof deck on the back. Here's the 2-car garage, plenty of room to park your car without needing to pull in next to the garage. And the landscape plan removes some patio, puts in some new patio. Overall, it's not a huge amount. It's only a couple hundred square feet of new hardscape. Actually, this only says 132 square feet because a larger area is being removed up here. This area is getting concrete paver stones. It's kind of spread out around the existing deck. The most significant addition is an improved walkway around the side. The trash pickup is on West Washington, unfortunately, not on the alley where the trash cans are stored. So in order to get your trash cans all the way around the house, you need a suitable path to do that. 6-foot wide walkway. The designer of this landscape plan was very accommodating. I made a couple recommendations and he jumped right on it. Lots of nice plantings around. Still lawn area in the front, which is appropriate. Ground cover on that hill, which is probably hard to mow. And then just low plantings. There's an existing hedge on both property lines. And really, this is just going to be a very cool addition to a now very cool house. A couple of different styles of pavers and stone are proposed to be used. You can look at the plan to figure out what goes where, but I think that all of these materials are appropriate. Here are the better photographs that show the existing rear patio. Here's the existing walkway. Pretty tough to get a couple of trash cans and recycle bins up there. And here's that existing pad next to the garage. So staff obviously supports the proposal and does not find it overwhelming or excessive for this lot. I've already read to you standards 2 and 10. From the guidelines for building site, recommended is retaining the historic relationship between buildings, landscape features, and open space, and this does that, certainly. From the Ann Arbor design guidelines for decks and patios, it's appropriate to install a patio flush with grade using stone, brick, pavers, or concrete, which is exactly what's proposed, and ensuring that a deck or patio drains away from the historic resource. Some of this is actually pervious paving. The concrete squares on the, I'll get back up there in a second and I'll show you. Nope, that's the end. Oh, my computer froze up just in time. Okay, never mind. Some of the new patio area is impervious and some of it is pervious. All right, it started over. All right. We're not going to worry about that because we made it all the way through. So staff does recommend approval of this application and thinks that it meets the Secretary of Interior standards and guidelines. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Would the applicant please come forward? Oh, no, you have to do something else first. Commissioners Cope and Apperson, please give the review committee report and recommendation.
I agree with Ms. Thatcher pretty thoroughly on this report. I think the house is in great condition, and I think really the last piece of it is doing a lot of landscaping. There's already, I think, quite a bit of the basic structure in place to set up, the plan that's proposed. Some of the pieces, like I said, are there. They just need to be really manicured and fine-tuned, and I think the plan does a really good job of doing that.
Okay, Commissioner Cope, anything?
Yeah, I really don't have much to add. The one thing that I did notice in relationship to the neighborhood, I felt that having the path on the west side, the 4-foot walkway on the west side of the home, may have been a little excessive in width compared to other homes in the area up and along that block. Even creating that green space between the walkway and the house, which would be, in line with probably 90% of the homes that are built in that style on Washington Street. So that's the only thing that I noticed on that. And I think a 36-inch walkway through there opposed to a 4-foot walkway would really be more appropriate.
Okay.
In keeping vegetation between the home and the walkway.
All right, thank you. Would the applicant please come forward, state your name for the record, and please sign in. And then if you have anything to add to staff or review committee reports, that'd be great.
I'm Nadine Hubbs. I am the owner, just to correct the record, it's 812 West Washington rather than 712.
We found that out in review committee.
Okay. So I'm the homeowner who's been doing the renovations and the mower and the hauler of trash cans up that grade.
Do you take them down the steps, or do you go down the hill?
My feet go down the steps at times, and my bike goes up the hill.
Okay.
But with the trash bins,
Yeah.
I have to just try to get down the hill without falling.
Do you have any comments to add to the staff report?
I am happy to hear that in the way that if if I may, Jill, I've been dealing with Jill for 4 years, so we're kind of on a first-name basis. I was happy to hear Jill was narrating exactly what the issues are with perfect understanding. And so I don't think I have anything else to add to what she's already said.
All right, great. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak? Commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
I guess I'm going to go back to the walkway on the west side of the home. I really believe just through the neighborhood and being through Washington, that's kind of a character, that cement pathway up through the back of those houses is kind of a character defining feature to all those homes. You don't see them change very much. And we regulate two-lane driveways as character-defining features in landscaping. And I think that's really just my only objection. I do understand the need to get around, and there is a lot of overgrowth on that walkway. I don't know how wide that walkway actually is. It might actually be 30 inches wide. We couldn't really tell with the amount of grass that's overgrown it. Or even just widening it with pavers if it's in decent condition. That's the only thing that I noticed.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I think it's kind of a character-defining feature to those homes in that neighborhood.
Yeah, so I'm pulling out from the Secretary of Interior's guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings, building site under recommended. So this is really about the historic relationship between the building and the landscape. So typically, we would see a vegetation between the house and a walkway. The plans indicate that it's right up next to it. The drawings show that there is currently a little gap of vegetation. So I could see Commissioner Cope's point, particularly when it applies to the standard itself. So that's an area that I'd like to look for clarification as well and hear from other commissioners. We can probably get to that in the discussion period, but we want to also ask questions from you about what you think and what you're inclined to think about it. So go ahead.
So go ahead.
Yes.
So the vegetation here in the design diagram that we were just seeing, the vegetation, as you can see, it still shows up in the front, but I guess we're talking about the sort of bump out area just in back of that. The vegetation disappears in the design plan, right?
Yeah.
Right. And behind that, there are already concrete pads.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yep, we know. We saw that. It's just more that the front side that you can view, that narrow path coming around and seeing that the vegetation that comes around. It really is similar to the whole neighborhood.
Yeah. I mean, it could be that what we're seeing on plan is giving us one impression of what it might be versus what it actually may be installed as. And maybe when it's installed, there'll actually be a decent amount of space between those buildings, or the building and the walkway. But right now, it's right next to it, right on it. And that's something we definitely don't see in a historic context.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Notice where it is right now, though. Sorry.
No, but there's still vegetation.
Is there actual dirt between this existing walk and the house, or is that just stuff that's kind of spilling out from underneath the bay window?
There might be just like 4 inches enough for it to grow in there.
Here is the deck plan that was approved in January 2014 and submitted by my architect, my building architect, Wayne Appleyard.
So the dashed line is the line of the wall, and the line that's the hard line is the line of the roof. So there is definitely a space between the walkway and the building shown on this plan.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a pretty narrow space, as I think you noted.
Buffer.
So that's the roof. Yeah, it's 2 feet all the way down.
I mean, I've also noticed that in terms of constructing it, it's a 2 foot by 2 foot paver that they're using. And so I could see that, you know, unless they move to an 18-inch paver, they're really not going to, one, make the sidewalk much more narrower unless they change the size of the paver everywhere on site. So that's something else in terms of their construction. It's neither here nor there. I'm just pointing it out as in terms of their constructability, I can see that that's the paver that they're using everywhere on site. So they'd have to change either all of them or make that one walkway slightly different size, and which would, I don't know, wouldn't unify the space very well architecturally.
I have a question. Was this approved in 2014?
That was the deck plan that was approved, as opposed, we weren't proposing any landscaping
Okay.
at that time. We have considered the other paver materials too. We went with this in the drawing, but we have other options that we like in mind. I wanted to ask for clarification. One option that was mentioned was that we could widen the sidewalk with pavers, by which did you mean leaving the current sidewalk intact? That's something I wondered if we could do, adding pavers along the side.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was looking at, is where you expand it out
To the west.
from 6 foot from the start in, and then you're expanding it out, and then bringing that extension of 4 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet, with the inclusion of the cement pathway out, and keeping that original line of the pathway around the home. Because, you know, I'll still go back to being kind of a character-defining feature to the home and through the neighborhood.
And that would be okay with you?
That would be definitely okay with me.
That was just, to clarify, what I thought I heard was just taking the existing, can you go to the existing sidewalkway photo?
Less removal for you.
Right.
Yeah, and so it's this upper
And it
right-hand
keeps that
photo.
intact,
Yeah.
and it's in good condition. It just needs to be.
It is.
It just needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah, so
There
it's,
wasn't
looks-
spalling, cracking.
so it's the upper right-hand photo that we're looking at right now. So it's just adding paver,
On the
2-foot
out-
paver along the side of that, following it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or if it's 2 feet wide now, it would be adding, your
And-
preference
and-
is more toward 1 more foot.
Yeah, or 1 or 2 feet. What I'd like to just continue is that same line that comes around the house.
Good.
And opposed to angling it off at the front and creating just a small bed space from the steps over in that small corner and having pavers flush up against the house the rest of the way.
The buffer space would remain.
The buffer space would remain,
Yeah.
just how it is. Except for where you're widening your stoop to 6 feet,
Yeah.
your front steps,
Uh-huh.
which is, you've already have widened to the 6 feet. I think that was.
That's
approved.
right,
That
right
was
in front
already
of the
approved,
porch
yeah,
step.
Yep,
Mhm.
which looks fantastic, by the way. I love your house.
Thank you. We restored the post brackets and, it's
Looks
too bad we
amazing.
don't have a before
We have
photo
images?
because it was so heinous. It was so hideous.
The house on to the left of you and the right are the same, correct?
And also too farther east.
Yeah.
There's, I think, 4 on that block, with that same grade.
Well,
Is it 3 or 4?
it gets less dramatic as you approach the YMCA.
Correct, yeah. And
The outside
we
posts,
just,
the
we
ones that were
walked the
original.
block, and every house had that same walkway, and, you know, they're all
I don't
built
think they changed
at the
that.
same, relatively the same time, probably the same builder, and it just kind of keeps that continuity within that small block of houses where, you know, a builder really cared for what they did.
All right, I kind of got lost where we are in the process here, but I think we're on the questions. Any other questions for the applicant?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead. Commissioner Rock.
You show a couple different, I guess, wall materials here. One is like a ledge stone, and one is maybe like a concrete block unit. Where on the plan are, like, what's the design intent for those 2 materials that you show? Not entirely sure. where they're gonna show up in the plan.
Right.
Yeah.
The builder originally proposed those blocks.
Okay.
And more recently, we've been talking with him about the natural stone.
Okay.
To be honest with you, I haven't got his, he hasn't priced it out yet for me, and so I'm not sure.
Where would walls be, though? I'm not even sure where they're, I assume they're either on the side of the stairs.
back.
Or they're all all of those would be in the back?
Totally in the back.
Okay.
We have 2 big rises in the yard, and the total grade change
It needs it.
has been, it's, the numbers we've had is that there's a total of 10-foot rise
Yeah.
from the street to the back alley.
Okay.
It's gonna look like the terracing down is gonna look really nice back there.
The main thing I wanted to confirm is that you weren't proposing a wall along the sidewalk in the front and that you were gonna maintain that slope that's existing down. I mean, that's really was sort of buried.
The slope is there, yeah.
And the front, the condition where your front yard meets the sidewalk, I see that you're replacing the lawn with what is it? Yeah, with ground cover, but it's still gonna be the slope.
Mhm.
Is it still gonna be the slope that's existing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So we see that the walls are really just where Commissioner Cope is standing in the photo right now. It's mostly in that area, as shown on the plans. Is that right?
Mm-hmm, that's right.
And then the other one, on the other side of the garage, that's located on the drawings, and that says that's going to be a timber.
Yep.
You see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, I will now close the public hearing portion regarding the application. The applicant may please be seated. Thank you. All right, would any commissioners like to make a motion regarding this application?
I'll make the motion.
All right, go ahead.
I move that the commission issue a certificate of appropriateness for the applicant, for the application at 812 West Washington Street, a contributing property in the Old West Side Historic District, to remove 192 square feet of hardscape and construct 324 square feet of new patio and walks using concrete pavers and stone. As proposed, the work is compatible in exterior design, arrangement, texture, material, and relationship to the rest of the building and the surrounding area, and meets the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings. In particular, standards 2 and 10 and the guidelines for building site, and the Ann Arbor Historic District design guidelines for patios.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
I'd like to add to the amendment that the cement pathway from the front to the back should remain and can be widened with pavers. I don't know if we could put that in the motion or not, but I just feel very strongly about that cement pathway going around the side of the house.
Discussion, I would second that. Any thoughts or discussion on that
Do
one?
we know that it's from the period of significance of the historic district? I mean,
Oh, the
that's
wa-
yeah, I mean, I agree I agree with everything that you're saying, but I'm just curious if it's from the period of significance. And I agree that it's a character defining feature such that if it is, and it probably is.
I think it is.
Yeah,
I'm pretty positive it is.
Yeah, to me, it's may or may not be a contributing feature, but the fact that it's a historic relationship between a building and landscape,
Sure.
that falls under that to me.
That's standard.
Yeah,
Kind of like the TCF bank,
yeah.
to me. This is my TCF.
So Commissioner Epperson, would you agree to that amendment?
I do agree.
All right, and then,
So,
Jill, do you have that in there somehow?
Yes.
Want to read it?
Just for clarity, you talked about widening it with pavers. You okay with widening it with poured concrete?
I'd say yes. As long as the existing path that remains.
Okay. On the condition that the existing path on the west side of the house remains and may be widened using pavers or concrete. As conditioned.
Thank you.
Got it. Thank you.
Are we gonna vote on it? It's support.
You supported? You
Over
support
discussion.
the,
You supported.
amendment? All right. Now, we have the amendment set, and then I guess we can move ahead and vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed to the motion, say no. The motion carries. Your application has been approved, and you will receive a written decision from staff. Please note that you must apply for any required building permits. Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda, we're moving into G, new business, addition to the staff approval list. There's a memo, staff approvals amendment memo.
I have one clarification. Commissioner Rockland brought it to my attention that it sounds like I'm confirming that the tree service or arborist are dead, diseased, or damaged, the way I've written it. So I'm going to read you the proposed amendment as it's revised. 17, the removal of dead, diseased, or damaged historic trees/plantings extant from the period of significance with a written statement from a professional service or arborist confirming that the historic trees/plantings are dead, diseased, or damaged. So this came about because we've sort of, as staff have sort of thrown out, you can't cut down landmark trees. Turns out that if you look at a lot of landmark trees, they were planted well after the period of significance for the historic district ended. And after some discussion with the city attorney, who discussed it with others, they're just not something that should be in the purview of the Historic District Commission because they're cool, but they're not historic, trees that were planted after 1945. So I got a request from somebody on the Old West Side to cut down a black walnut tree that was clearly not there on 1947 aerial photos. There was just nothing on the lot, but today there's a big black walnut tree that is not dead or diseased, and they would like to remove it. So I can't very well disapprove it at the staff level. So I'd like to have you guys amend the staff approvals list to clarify which trees I can approve and which trees I can't. So if I can look at a 1947 aerial and see that a tree is there that somebody wants to remove, they're going to have to apply to the HDC. But if it's not on that 1947 aerial, or if it's not on the 1947 aerial and it was clearly planted after that, then they would just need a staff approval.
And this aerial is from, it's a photograph?
It's a photograph, and it's one of the clearest aerials that we have. It's better than 2006.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Real
and you
film.
can see them on ewashtenah.org if you ever want to look up the old aerials.
I've seen it.
Or you might see them on the city website as well. But I use it all the time for looking at old garages, looking at placement of stuff on lots. I would have, if I had thought of the question in advance, looked up that walkway on West Washington to see if it was there in 1947, because it's so close to the period of significance that, you know, it's a pretty good bet that
You could zoom in that close?
you can see stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. It's good. It's black and white, but it's like crystal clear.
Must have been Sputnik.
So anyway, I'm requesting that the existing tree language be clarified to say that it is not trees from the period of significance. Oh, wait a second. Removal of dead, no, it is trees from the period of significance that are confirmed to be dead, diseased, or damaged, that staff approvals are required for.
So
Okay.
I have a thought that comes to mind because of previous decisions that we've had to make regarding trees.
Mhm.
How does that affect this?
It doesn't, because we would have used the same criteria. It's just, it's something that I can point at when you say,
Yeah.
now you don't live in a historic district. When Evan says, my neighbor cut down a tree, was that okay? It was a landmark tree. I'll be able to say, confirm that it was not from the period of significance, so it was not a historic feature of the site, so it was okay to take it down.
And if it wasn't,
And if it wasn't,
they get a fine?
Then 100
Is there-
years have gone by.
and if they
Tree
cut it
was
down
tree.
and it was a historic feature, then they'd have to come back in for after-the-fact approval. Wouldn't that be fun?
Can't really put a tree back in place.
No, but you can plan a bunch of other ones.
Make 'em,
So I got one question.
Yeah.
Are we okay with a professional service or arborist rather than the city, like someone's buddy who's an arborist? Oh, yeah, I'm just like,
Yeah,
the validity
so-
of that arborist is what I'm concerned about.
So let me tell you what actually happens. The professional tree people or arborist apply to take down a tree, and I make them fill out the city tree form that we use to assess tree health. There's like 5 different
Yeah.
categories. You get a number of points. And then I show it to Carrie Gray, who is the city Lorax.
Okay.
She speaks for the trees, and she compares it to photographs of the trees that they've supplied. She may even go out and visit it if it's sketchy or borderline or looks like a really important tree.
Yeah.
And so I make sure that it meets all of her criteria for tree removal.
That
Death,
makes sense. I
disease.
just want there to be a
Because
checks
it's-
and balance.
I
That's
mean,
a better
yeah,
check and
there are
balance.
living trees that look dead to me, there are dead trees that are
Sure.
living, that, that look living, and so I kind of leave it to her as the professional. And this would only apply to single and duplex sites, because commercial properties with 3 or more units aren't allowed to cut down trees anyway that are landmark. And it's not impossible, but unlikely that you would have a historic tree that's not big enough to be a landmark tree. If it's been there since 1945, it's,
You're gonna know.
yeah.
Fair.
So those are sort of double regulated in historic districts, both through the site plan process and through the historic district.
Just curious, are landmark trees regulated throughout the city,
Yes, on commercial properties,
not residential?
not single and 2-family residential.
Okay.
Yeah, except in historic districts,
Except in historic district.
for everyone watching at
There's a couple
home.
trees out there, stick around.
All right, so then we have to propose a motion.
Well, this
I'll,
proposal amendment to 17. Is that correct?
Yep, I've got a little fake motion down there if you'd like
I'll
it.
propose a
There's
motion.
a fake motion written.
Oh, okay.
I move that item 17 from staff approvals list be amended as proposed effective immediately.
Support.
Seconded by Commissioner White. Any discussion on the motion?
No.
All right, ready for a vote? All those in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed to the motion, please say no. Motion carries. It will be effective immediately.
Thank you.
And then, I'm trying to. This is true. All right, next on our new business is H, approval of minutes. We have some minutes from August 9th. Everyone has read them thoroughly. Anyone have comments? I gotta find that. There are no objections.
It's none.
The meeting minutes have been approved as presented. All right, next one is reports from commissioners. Does any commissioner have any reports? Nope. All right, how about assignments? Commissioners who will serve on the review committee, which will meet on Monday, November
13.
13th at noon.
Please note that the meeting is a week late because of Election Day next month.
Ah,
I
We're
can
the
do it.
3rd Thursday. You can do it? Thank you.
Okay.
You got Dave? Anybody else?
I think I might be.
Wait, what day is the meeting?
Thursday, the 16th.
I will be here for the meeting, but I can't be here for the review committee next
Okay,
month.
review committee is Monday, the 13th at noon.
I'm pretty sure I can, so write me down for now.
Okay. All right, I have John and Dave. Thank you.
13th, checking calendar,
Here they are.
loading.
Special seniority. You come up next to be secretary next year.
Yeah, good. Okay. Other assignments. We have assignments for J2, volunteers for the nominating committee. Where it is
David and I
Commissioner
are gonna
White
do it, and
and
David.
Commissioner
I volunteered.
Rockland has volunteered. All right, K, reports from staff. That's in your packet.
Yeah, you've got some staff activities in here. Let me know if you have any questions. There's one for the City of Ann Arbor Fire Station. Don't be alarmed, it's on the new part of the building, not the old hands-on museum part of the building. There is one remove dying tree on here that I did give a staff approval to. The sorority at the corner of Washtenaw Hill, the one that's the Tudor that's set back with the big trees on the lawn, but they fortunately take their big trees very seriously and tried very hard to save that tree for a long time, but it's dead, and now it's gone. One other staff issue. We are still looking for a volunteer to be the liaison to Cobblestone Farm, I believe. Unless one of you already volunteered at the last meeting and I didn't write it down.
I did not.
I recommend it highly.
The,
Someone should do it.
the Cobblestone Farm Board bylaws or code or something says that they need a member from the Historic District Commission. So it's kind of a,
When does their board meet?
you know, that's what I don't know. Ben told us on his way out, and we didn't take care of it right then.
Can we postpone it until next meeting and get more information? Make a decision?
Yeah, it's during the day. Yes, I will do that.
Why don't you just email the information?
Yeah.
It's just the meeting date.
Yes, that's a good idea. And then if we have a volunteer, feel free to reply to the group.
Yeah.
That's not doing
I
business.
may be able to, but
Okay. And if we don't have a volunteer, I'm going to twist all of your arms at next month's meeting.
All at once.
Oh, other updates from staff is we do have a new 7th member
Yay.
coming on board, maybe in November, but definitely by December. City Council has not confirmed the person, but
Okay.
she's been nominated, so we're getting there.
Good. All right, any other reports from staff?
That's it for me.
All right, concerns of commissioners. I actually have one. This is on Liberty. There's a house that came up and we denied it a couple times. They tried to add huge additions and garages and stuff. That house is really beginning to fall apart. I can see neglect.
Okay.
Which one is this?
It's this tiny little house. It's light blue right now. It's unoccupied. It's the one that
Michael
borders
Bilby
the
owns it.
walkway to the
West Park.
playground.
Yes.
Right.
That one is being neglected.
Yep.
I saw the sill just rotting away. You know, everything's up on that big huge wood timber frame holding it in the front, and that whole thing is just exposed and rotting.
Would you like to form a special committee to write up your findings so that I can
Yeah,
I'll work with you on a
Yeah.
special committee for that.
all right, so Max and I will,
take a look, write it up?
is that how we do this?
Yep, I'll put it on letterhead, we'll mail it off to them and say, we suspect that demolition by neglect is going on.
Yeah, that's.
And ask them
that's
for a
suspicion.
remediation plan, and if we don't get one and they don't stick to it, then we move on to the building official who can
Okay.
write tickets and things.
If I remember correctly, that's a home that's kind of like a carriage house, correct? To
It-
the yellow one? Or is it a different?
It's
No,
next to
it's
the
a-
yellow one.
It's a much older Greek revival, but it's next door to the yellow
On the
one.
other side of that yellow one? Okay.
Yeah.
It's
to the
not
right,
his
to the west.
carriage house? Okay,
Yeah, no.
because that's blue too.
All right, any other
I'll
concerns?
come with you.
Bob's moving on.
All right, thank you.
Any communications to the HDC? I don't think there are any communications, are there?
No.
All right. There being no further business and without objection, I adjourn the October 12th, 2017 Ann Arbor Historic District Commission meeting. Meeting adjourned.